everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the knee-slapping K-pop podcast. I am Kayla, and today I am here with Sammi.
Hello.
We're here for a very interesting episode today.
We're here for an episode that this is a topic that we have mentioned on like every episode we do. But we've never like sat down and just done an episode on it, and I do think it is something we need to do.
Yes. It's very more in line with like, and we all will be referencing like some of the stuff that we've talked about like on the scandal iceberg as well, because but some of those incidents are very much related to this topic as well, which is the sexualization of male K-pop idols. Because I feel like we don't talk about it like at all. Not to say that female idols are not sexualized.
Let's get that disclaimer out there.
Because they are, but it's in a different way.
It's in a very different way, and it's also a topic that has been so rightfully very focused on the sexualization of female K-pop idols, and like it has had its own things occur. It has had its own scandals, and it is something that is, I think K-pop fans at this point are almost like hyper vigilant to the sexualization of female K-pop idols, especially in a way that is like problematic. And yet there is no discussion about how the same things are happening to male K-pop idols. And in a way, sadly to say, it almost feels like it is done almost more so by the community and by K-pop fans as opposed to just the general industry.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with female K-pop idols, so we have examples, we have lists. This is sort of a free-flowing discussion, but this is something that we've come to notice over our like 10 years, like at least 5 years of being like really into this community and just seeing how different idols are treated and seeing how different situations are handled. I think we do need to spotlight sort of some things that happen that we find interesting. Let's use that word.
Call them interesting, yep.
Because so our first thing is like, yes, female idols are very sexualized in this industry to a point of there have been many a scandal. There has been almost like a sexy backlash in a way. Not so much now, because I think we're out a couple years and people kind of want to see the sexy concept back. But there was a period, especially in like the late 2010s, that there was almost a sexy backlash.
Right. And I think a lot of that came after Stellar, and once once they opened up about their career and what they were sort of forced to do from their company, I think them coming forward at all made a lot of the general K-pop fandom aware of what was happening. And it not only did it make people aware, it confirmed the fact that there are groups who are forced into that concept who don't want to do it.
And also, in a way, if you watch our best and worst of every year, you'll know that we love a sexy concept. But also, there especially in that 2010s, like second, third gen K-pop thing, is you'll find the theme that we always have, what we call the Nugu sexy girl group.
Yeah.
Which is a very common trend that I don't see as much now, but
it's because like the girl crush has sort of taken over the sexy concept instead in more recent years.
But what we call the Nugu sexy girl group are the girl groups that are, they have the sexy concept, but it does not come off as, one, like something that the girls want to do, like Stellar, for example, and two, they're sort of, the way they are shot, it seems very exploitative. Like, I often categorize it as the shots are woman either with their back or like faceless, like no face, only body, and then also you mixed so poorly that you can barely hear what they're saying. So it really is just body. Like, that is sort of the characteristics of that, as opposed to something like Sistar or AOA, where that sort of seemed more like a full concept that these groups were comfortable with.
Right.
So that's sort of where the distinction comes in.
There was also, with like Sistar and AOA, there feels like there's a confidence to it as well. Like, the whole vibe of the song and of like the members who are in that concept always feels very different. And a lot of the times we call it the Nugu sexy girl group concept because it's a lot of the times new girl groups who ended up in that place to begin with because they're in shitty companies, and a lot of the times they're easier to get taken advantage in that way because either the members are more desperate and also the companies are more desperate to try to get any type of attention from anywhere.
Yeah. 9 times out of 10, the people you'll find doing these concepts are groups that, unlike a Sistar or an AOA, who from the beginning their concept was that, like, you go back to like Elvis I wouldn't call like a sexy concept, but it has those elements in it. Like, those groups started in that concept. What you'll often find with the Nugu sexy concept is that even like a Stellar or something, they start with a completely different concept. And then once those concepts don't take off, you're really just cycling through to see what works.
Right.
And the issue oftentimes was that sometimes the sexy concepts done in that style often gave that group the most amount of attention possible, whether that be positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
You find that also with a group that did it, but like never made, like, to a lesser extent. I also think Hello Venus did it, for another example.
Uh-huh.
Like, they didn't start with Wiggle. They didn't.
Right.
But it just evolves into that. Boy groups sort of have it in a different way, though. Because I think that no matter the sexy concept for boy groups, they don't get the same backlash. People embrace it. And I do think that it might be because of, like, the history of sexualization of women, that it almost feels like a taking back control. Like, oh, if they did it to us, we can do it to them type situation. But, like, it just feels very much like how girl groups were being treated in that era of that second, third gen era is what I think is happening to boy groups now. You see very similar parallel with, like, your only one of, a little bit of your Monsta X, things like that are happening.
And it's like, a lot of the times, because groups are debuting so young now too, it's like, it's almost like you see an immediate shift in concept once all of the members turn 18 and are adults. Like, it almost is expected that they will, it's like, and maybe they don't stick with that concept always, but there is always some, like, a comeback or something that is that like shifts. An immediate, that Hal always has that, like, immediate shift there.
Yeah. And with girl groups, I don't think it's gotten to the point where they're shifting to, I still don't think we have, like, a sexy girl group again, the way we had, like, before. And I do think that just because, since they debuted so young, that transition has to happen in, like, increments. Right. And a lot of times they just don't last long enough to finally get there, or they sort of settle into just making music they enjoy making that doesn't push them into that level.
A lot of times groups will figure out their sound and their concept before they have to resort to switching to that at this point.
Or they've been doing it so long that if you're going to reach the point of, like, Nugu Sexy, that Nugu group has been around for so long and not making money that unfortunately they do disband before they even reach that point. Right, because they're like, we can't just keep spending money like this for comebacks that aren't going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. So do we just want to get into a little tangent?
Yeah, we sort of covered the girl group. First.
I think we do have to mention so we are aware, before anyone comments, this was our talking about female sexualization in K-pop. I do think that it is we're going to continue bringing it up throughout the episode. Don't worry. We're not saying men have it worse.
Yeah.
Do not misinterpret this. I just think that it is an issue for both men and women. And I do think us not talking about them, one, I do think leaves male idols who, again, much like how female idols can be taken advantage of, male idols are in a very similar position as the subjugated like, they do not have the power. Like, they don't have any more power than a female idol. Like, you're still looking at people with very little power in the situation that they are in.
And so we have recently seen that with Omega X, which we'll get to eventually in this episode.
It's just that I do think that we as a K-pop community are in a way, like, because of the situation that happened with female idols, we're almost like hyper fixated on like, are they being like, I think for everybody, people are always hyper fixated on whether people are being taken advantage of, whether people are being mistreated. The amount of comments and videos and everything about this group was mistreated, how this idol is being mistreated, how everyone's being mistreated. I do think, and like sexualization, especially with the fact that groups are getting younger and younger and younger, is happening. But one, I think that sexualization talk only ever focuses on the women. Not that it shouldn't, but like it should like also be a more broader talk that I do think we need to sort of have, because I do think that unfortunately, and this is something we do have to contend with, like some of that issue isn't as much coming from companies as it is both coming from companies and from the public.
Yeah.
And we'll get into more specifics of that in a minute. But we do have to sort of talk about a mini tangent.
We have a mini tangent.
We're not saying...
We have a mini J-pop tangent because, as some people might know, there was a very... And it's not like all of this stuff was coming out this year. This is something that has been happening and people have been aware of for many, many years at this point. But there was there were more articles written about it this year.
There was a big BBC documentary about
it this year. There is also
an
anime named Oshinoko that is airing right now that I think is sort of reminding people about the sort of horrible conditions that, because it's about J-pop idols face, but because a lot of anime fans are also K-pop fans, it is sort of like connecting both of those, because it is they're different, but a very similar sort of exploitation that can happen of like pop idols as well.
And the other thing I want to mention is that this situation is, we're not saying that this is like happening, but also this situation almost like perfectly encapsulates the reaction that many people have to male, especially sexual exploitation.
Right, which is apparently...
which is a broader issue in all of society. Like, that's a big issue everywhere.
We're going to acknowledge that it happened and then do nothing about it.
And then do nothing to change it and almost be more okay with victim blaming men as opposed to anybody else.
Right.
So we're very hinting at the Johnny's or Johnny's company, the biggest J-pop, Johnny and Associates, this big J-pop company that weirdly we hadn't looked into that much before this, but we always felt real sketch about.
Yeah, because
that company has that weird monopoly is a lot.
Yeah, because Johnny's and the Exile company really have the monopoly on J-pop boy groups.
Yes.
And we only look at them because once we started getting into JO1, we sort of looked at them as like, that's what like real J-pop, quote unquote real J-pop is. And so every once in a while we'd check in with them, see what's going on with J-pop, and then realize we didn't like it and then not care about it for another 6 months.
We check in like every 6 months or so just to see what are the trends in J-pop.
Right?
And surprisingly they don't change that much. I still don't
like the J-pop trends.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this whole situation with Johnny's Associates really stems from the founder and like this Johnny, the titular Johnny of the company,
of Johnny and Associates,
Johnny Kitagawa, who he's dead now, but was a very powerful figure in Japanese entertainment. He has been getting so many just claims against sexual assaults from many of the people under his company for decades, and was never charged with a crime for any of it.
And we're talking, it comes out that like he's apparently been doing this since before he had even like started Johnny's. We're talking like this.
We're going back at least till 1999. Like at the earliest, but it definitely happened before then, because in 1999 is when sort of they started to first circulate articles about what might be happening. So the abuse definitely started even before then as well.
Yes. We're talking like they've been doing
this has been going on for decades, like actually decades.
The 90s, possibly into like the late 80s. Like we're looking at decades of just rampant sexual abuse.
Yep.
And like a lot of the groups under Johnny's and Associates are the biggest.
They are the boy groups of Japan.
They are the boy groups of Japan. Like they are the groups. Like you're looking at
that's Snowman and Six Tones.
King and Prince, just all of these groups that are just constantly
Hey
talked
Say
about.
Jump, I know that's one they cover a lot.
Hey Say Jump, yeah, Hey Say Jump we see all the time, but like
a lot.
if you are a J-pop fan, that's like saying that this is like if it happened to SM Entertainment, like but like a conglomerate of SM and like JYP together,
right,
like we're talking massive.
Yes. Because it's like essentially any group that isn't labeled from the Exile tribe that clearly comes from the Exile company is a Johnny's group.
Yes. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
But yeah, so this has sort of been circulating for years in Japan. There have been lawsuits. There have been constant like talks about it.
Right.
It sort of seemed like it was an open secret for years.
And it took a while before I think this hit international headlines.
Oh yeah.
Because this has been known since 1999 in Japan when a magazine ran the series of articles about it. But then didn't even really reach international attention until earlier this year because BBC News ran a segment on it. But then after 1999, after they ran the article, and that was a series of interviews with several teenage boys who had claimed they had been sexually assaulted by him while in Johnny's company. But then Johnny, the man, sued that company for libel and was awarded damages from it.
Yes.
So that I guess apparently that judgment got partially overturned. In 2004, when they claimed the magazine had sufficient enough reason to publish that article against him in the first time. But he was never actually charged with any crimes after that entire situation because he essentially just sued them back for like, what's the word I'm looking, like defamation type of
defamation
situation.
Of character, yeah.
But none of those boys they interviewed ever came out against him to charge him with anything. And so Japan's mainstream media essentially just chose to ignore everything that was revealed there. And there are several other men who have come out since who have also made similar claims, but they just continue to ignore a lot of what is happening. And a lot of it seems to be like Japan just refuses to investigate a lot of the sexual abuse, sexual assault claims that come out of any men who are in that company at all.
Yes.
Because they were so dependent on Johnny to supply these boy groups to the entertainment industry.
And they make so much money for the economy. And the other thing is that Johnny's in a way has almost acknowledged it, but in the way of saying we're making changes and he's dead now, so who cares?
Right.
That sort of is what a lot of those statements sort of seem like.
And this,
like the
this
people
man
that have
died
done
in
this is gone.
2019 is when he died, yep.
Yeah. So, in a way, it almost seems like they have made acknowledgments. They obviously not admitting guilt because no company will ever admit guilt, but there is substantial amount of evidence to these claims.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot going on there, and it's just ignored because, of course, it is. And the thing with Johnny's is it's so interesting that it is an all-male company. There are no girl groups that come out of Johnny's.
No, they're only boy groups. As far as I know.
Yes. I mean, I think that if they had a girl group, I've never heard of them. It's a lot. So this is sort of like the worst scenario, which is like rampant decades-long sexual abuse that goes completely untreated.
Yeah.
Not that like, and this is just a thing about the idol industry.
Right.
In every country that like, we've heard about this happening in like small K-pop companies. Like this is just a thing that happened. Like, not that it's correct, but like this is not the most uncommon story I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's shocking that we have so much evidence of it and everyone ignores it, but in a way
that's probably the
in a way that's also not shocking.
Aspect, yeah.
But in a weird way it's almost not shocking.
Right.
Because people with power get away with things for decades. Just look at the American industry with like your Harvey Weinsteins, your Bill Cosbys, all of that stuff that we've known about for years, but no one did anything about for decades. I don't know. I just feel like the reason we bring it up is because, one, it's a clear-cut case of this happening. Two, because I feel like in K-pop you hear about it so much with girl groups.
Right.
That there's not as many clear examples of boy groups or this happening to as many male idols. that this sort of is just like, no, it happens equally.
It's been happening.
Like, it happens for decades.
This is like 50% of the idol talent in Japan. And it's like, and this is happening to so
them.
many people there. Yeah, and it's been happening for like 30 years almost.
Yeah.
Like,
and, like, it's happening to them. It's probably happening to a bunch of the girls. Like, it's just a thing that is occurring that does need to be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, I also think, again, he's been doing this for 30 years. There are many victims who've come forward. Many of them do it anonymously because I do think that, because of a lot of the stigma, especially with male victims, there's a shame there. There's a shame for any victim of this kind of violence. But
and in one
with
of the
a male victim, there's like extra shame.
And one of the more recent people who had come forward about it says that it was sort of a culture of everyone was kind of aware it was happening, and you could say no, but the people who sort of put up with it were definitely fast tracked to debut and got way more opportunities. So that was a way to get ahead in that company, and that is totally unacceptable. That's just how this company has functioned for years, because people are have sort of forced themselves to think that that was okay in order to succeed in that company.
And in a weird way,
shouldn't be that way.
That also adds to the shame of it, because it's like, well, I also, like, did I also use them to try, like, there's just these added layers of, like, emotion, because you're super young at the time. Like, these are children. They're mid-teens at most, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know about J-pop, because they do slightly older, but
J-pop boy groups definitely skew a little bit older, but
they're still underage.
Doesn't make it okay.
Like, they're still young, like, no matter what. But there's still, like, those conflicting emotions. It's never their fault. They are obviously victims in this situation, but within their own heads, because you don't. I don't know. I just feel so bad for everybody involved. It's just like such a terrible situation. And when people talk about, like, the dark side of the idol industry, this is the kind of thing that, like, weirdly they never bring up.
Right.
They bring up so much stuff, but, like, they never talk about these situations. They talk about the no dating. They'll talk about the diets, which, yes, the diets are terrible. The diets are terrible. But, like, this kind of stuff that we've had multiple examples about, like, other than, like, people that are in the industry talking about this Johnny situation that's come out, I do think that it was kind of a story internationally, but, like, even then, not really.
Not really as much as it should be. Yeah.
No, it's sort of the first time the international audience has even heard of this situation, because they sort of have kept it
under wraps for years,
Like, I don't even know how, I mean, I don't know that many people that are, like, J-pop, hardcore J-pop fans. I do wonder if you are a hardcore J-pop fan, if you would even come across
or
this,
how much
because
of
it happened in the early 2000s. Like, how much of this is just a thing that, like, occurs and just no one talked about. I don't know. It is something that we do need to talk about.
Yes.
Another example we want to talk about that is much more K-pop centric.
Yeah, the rest of this is going to be about actually
all K-pop.
Involving K-pop,
Yes. But we just wanted to bring that up because
it's too big of an issue to not talk about it,
Also, I do think that the more people that know, probably the better.
Yes, for sure.
Just to get it out there.
Yes.
But the rest of these are actual K-pop examples. The first one we're going to talk about is one that I don't think a lot of people, we talked about on our Scandal Iceberg.
It's on, like, tier 7 of the Scandal Iceberg.
It is.
So it's, like, way down there, because it's not a thing that most people know about.
No, because it is, the reason that SNL Korea was canceled.
Yes.
It is, so Korea had their own, it's identical to the American version of SNL. It's a little sketch comedy show, but the big controversy occurred with how the show staff treated male idol hosts that were there that week. So there's a few videos released where a staff member was saying that B1A4 was finally able to host the show since member Jin Young had completed his latest drama. However, the video suddenly takes a turn in which, when the staff member introduces B1A4 as the host, in the clip, the female staff member female staff members suddenly touch the B1A4 members in the genital area and then run off. The B1A4 members seem shocked by this, and it does not seem planned. It seems like a full-on just, we filmed a sexual assault.
Yep.
So that happened to that. As the controversy grew, the SNL Korea production team ended up deleting the video and offering an official apology to the B1A4 members and their fans for the extreme behavior. This seemed like this also was put out by the production. This was not a leaked video.
No,
this was a joke.
That was a thing that they thought was okay
this
to
was
put on
just
the internet.
The promotion.
Put on the internet. Yep.
This was the promotion of their episode. People thought that this was fine.
Yep.
The production crew stated, "We will make note and prevent this kind of behavior toward the hosts. We offer a sincere apology." Meanwhile, a video clip showing similar treatment of members of Infinite had also surfaced, which led to a Twitter hashtag called SNL sexual harassment.
Yep.
For people to express the fact that this was a common thing for them to do to male idols. Yep. And no, this was only being done to male idols, because I also think that similar things were happening to, like, to a lesser extent, like Block B, I think, was involved at some point. This wasn't an isolated incident, an isolated bad joke, and it also seemed like a joke that they were only playing on people they thought they could get away with it with.
Yes.
Because, trust me, they didn't do this to female idols. Can you imagine?
No, absolutely not.
Can you imagine a female...
They did it to multiple male idol groups and thought it was chill to just upload that on the internet.
Can you imagine a male... I don't remember who was on SNL Korea, but I knew there were people that, like, people had heard of. I forget who was on that show, but, like, can you imagine a male member of staff just going up to, like, Girls' Generation and, like, just grabbing their boobs? Mm-hmm. Like, that would be... Like, you would never think to do that.
No.
But you can sort of do that to B1A4 and think that's fine.
And, like, they would have just continued to do this, and SNL Korea wouldn't have been canceled had they not uploaded that video themselves. And then the Infinite one, I think, got leaked. But
yes, the Infinite one was a leak.
Only happened after the B1A4 one was not leaked and it was officially uploaded.
It was just a thing that they did.
And then after it was known that was how SNL Korea behaved,
yes,
all the time. And
because
then
also
that
a
got
lot
canceled.
Of the stories...
That show got canceled very shortly after this.
Because at the very least there was a backlash to very blatant displays of this.
It's not okay to just sexually assault the guest of your show. Like, what are you doing?
The other thing with it is that I do think that this was sort of the culture behind the scenes is what it came out as too. Like, this was...
Oh, definitely.
I think it sort of bubbled over to being something they put out, but they had been doing this behind the scenes for a while.
Because I haven't seen a lot of SNL Korea. I have seen the Infinite episode because of course I have. It does seem like the female comedians are the ones who are like the main presence on SNL Korea for the most part. So
I don't know if that is just because
that's true.
Many of that is because I also agree with you there, but I don't know if that's maybe because we were watching mainly
I've definitely only
episodes.
seen I think I've seen clips of girl groups being on it,
but I don't fully know what
because I haven't seen a lot of SNL Korea.
I've seen clips, but mainly the ones I will watch like the whole sketch for is like Shiny was on for a couple times, like different people have been on, and I haven't watched that many girl groups. I don't know if that's maybe just sort of they want to balance it out a little bit. I don't know, but at least when male hosts are on, they do focus a lot of the female comedians. And if that's how they're acting on camera, I do wonder what the behind the scenes was like.
Yeah.
And that was just a very bad situation.
Right, and then we move on to Omega X, which was a very recent situation that happened.
Very recent.
And that's sort of where we got one of the first confirmations of, like, yes, male idols can also be taken advantage of and assaulted by their companies as well as female idols.
Yep.
In a really awful way. And
also being assaulted because with the Johnny situation, it is still, like, men taking advantage of men. This is just a woman taking advantage of, like, it's all equal gender.
This is like
here.
a female
This is just
CEO.
a problem with power.
Yeah.
power. It's just a problem of power, not of gender.
Yeah, and so we've talked about, we got more in detail on this situation in our scandal wrap-up from 2022. But sort of one of the more recent updates of that was, so in November of last year, Omega X held a press conference regarding the treatment of them by their company Spire Entertainment. They announced,
now former company,
yes. But they announced that as a group, they plan to file a criminal complaint on charges of assault, intimidation, indecent act of compulsion, and attempted threat, and that they had plenty of evidence, including photos, videos, and voice recordings. The members shared that they were sexually harassed often as well. And speaking on why they endured this treatment for so long, they said it was because for all of them it was a second attempt and we didn't want to waste time. We thought they had to endure it for the fans who had waited for us. And then I think this was the oldest member of the group who was speaking. He said he was scared that all of their dreams would collapse while looking at the rest of the exhausted members. We held back and endured it because we have reached the point that we can't endure it any longer. And we took courage for someone, for all those dreaming the same dream as us. And so,
I just wanted to put that in there, just because it's like, you wonder why these kids just sort of take it.
Yeah,
and it's for that. It's the desperation. It's their only
yeah.
option. They think it's their only option. It's their only way of debuting.
Mm-hmm.
And these boys have already been through enough.
Right.
Like, it's easy to say, well, why didn't you just leave when you're not in the situation?
Mm-hmm.
And it's there. You think you have no other choice.
Yeah. So then they go on to part ways with Spire Entertainment on May 7th of 2023. And then in July 2023, they signed an exclusive contract with IPQ Entertainment, and that's currently where they're at. So they were at least successfully able to get out of their previous management company.
They were.
And so it's kind of crazy that that's the first male group that we've really heard
let's
any
be
type
honest.
of thing of this happened from. It took this many years.
Yeah. Let's be honest. There aren't that many female groups that have even come out and said
it's really just Stellar.
It's really only Stellar.
Yeah.
It's Stellar and then vaguely, like, girls that have left other girl groups.
Right.
But the thing I will say, and the other reason it never happens, is because you have to have an undeniable amount of evidence to say anything in South, to start talking publicly about this kind of stuff in South Korea, mainly because of their very harsh anti-defamation laws. Like, you gotta, have all your bases covered.
And so, they had to really go through a lot before they even had enough to make a case against their company. And I remember this had started not even with, any type of, the sexual harassment type of situation, but it was because their company, stranded them in another country without flights back to Korea.
And I do think that really the catalyst for this, it wasn't the members themselves. I think the members themselves finally saw, that they had to leave once this random person on Twitter was like, hey,
there's a boy group
There's
here.
These K-pop boys. I don't know who they are, but, this crazy woman screaming
at them in a hotel for some reason.
In a hotel. So, here's, it became a scandal. Their blatant and flagrant mistreatment was news first, and then they were they finally saw that they had support, and people were like, what the fuck's happening? You should not be having to endure this. And then they went on to put this out there. It was so many steps. Can you imagine she decided not to be a psychopath that day and not pound on the door? In a public area in a foreign country. That's the other thing. In a foreign country where, America, they'll be like, nah, I gotta film this shit. Korea, who knows what they would do?
It's also by chance that the person who had ended up overhearing this even had any idea who these people
was going,
or any clue of who they might be to begin with.
And to put it at the very least in the correct sphere, it's I know this is K-pop, so let me get this to the correct people. As opposed to they could have thought this was something entirely different and just put it somewhere in I don't know, a completely different space.
Right. They were
and it would have never gone back to K-pop.
It kind of went on the internet and they're like, hey, does anyone know who this group is? And
because
then,
this
the
is
K-pop
not okay.
community figured it out, and then they're like, "Oh shit, that's not great."
The little detective K-pop community figured it out.
Yep.
So that's sort of, so we're gonna sort of transition a little bit from, because this was our section of talking about how the industry exploits male K-pop idols,
Yes.
which is sort of in the same way that they exploit female K-pop idols.
Yeah, it's literally the same.
Power and abuse. It's identical.
It's the same way. It's just
It's identical.
People in power exploit those who do not have any power, and that's how
exactly.
that
like
works.
It's the same.
Yep.
Now we get into the
weird,
slightly more nuanced, shall we say,
like fan
confusing part about
behavior.
how fan behavior changes when you're looking at men and women.
Because all of this stuff beforehand is like actual factual information that we can give you. The rest of this is more sort of
vibes.
It's vibes, and it's based off of like fan culture and things that we have seen online, and sort of just having been K-pop fans like experience
for years
from other people
and being part of many K-pop communities.
Yes.
And also from the fact that we are some of the only people doing K-pop podcasts, because again, I want to keep pointing out many people you're listening to that do K-pop podcasts are mainly girl group fans, and they're in girl group spaces.
And
we're in boy group spaces.
And a lot of people also just review music, and we very much don't do a lot of that.
We don't do that. No. But like even the fan spaces that we put ourselves into are boy group focused, and we're sort of like in on it. And what we see there, I don't really like sometimes.
I know.
It sort of depends on the group.
Right.
Because a lot of it seems very group and person specific, where so there's groups we want to talk about in specifics, which is, first off, we want to talk about Monsta X and the evolution of Monsta X.
Right.
So, how do we put this? The way people... It isn't so much the content that the groups are putting out, because none of these groups have come out and said that they don't want to do what they're doing, or that they don't like what they're doing, or any of that. It is a lot of just the fan culture around it sort of seems very focused on the sexuality of the idol rather than anything else that they're doing.
Yeah.
More so than what would happen in the same girl group setting.
Right. Because like some of these boy groups, like Monsta X in particular, you've seen so many things that's like where this person is clearly here to be like a body and nothing other than to like be shirtless and like be a body, and that's it. Like, and
that sort of happens because sort of the fans sort of only comment on the body.
Yeah.
And that's like a lot of people will call someone in a K-pop group a visual, or, and this is a new term that I don't love, a dozen. I don't love that term.
It's really stupid. I don't like using it. I think it's so stupid. It's just a stupid term. Like I don't think
it is because we just use
stupid.
Because like the thing with that is that I think they just want to avoid using the term useless, and I don't want to avoid using the term useless.
And
because
it's not
when I use
like
term
that.
Useless, it's
not like calling a person a dozen is not calling them useless. You're just doing that anyway
without using the right word.
Yeah.
And also, when I call someone useless, I mean that the fact that their group is not using them in any capacity.
Yeah.
They're not, because they're also not. They're just not being used at all.
Right.
But sort of, a lot of people will call someone the pretty face of a K-pop group. But for the most part, they sort of use that to fight against. As opposed to, like, when I really see that happen, is I do think K-pop fans put certain people in those boxes by their own fan behavior. And I'm talking, like, a lot of boy group members who are there to be the abs.
Yep.
And they're there to be the abs.
Right, like that was Wonho before he left Monsta X. But now that's still Wonho, but just as a soloist.
Yes. No one talks about Wonho's music.
No.
No one I've ever seen talks about Wonho's music. They talk about whatever he's wearing.
Right,
or
it's like
lack thereof.
Every discussion about Wonho is around his body and just like what he's wearing, or just like the entire vibe that he gives off is like none of it is ever about musically what he is doing.
And I do want to compare that to other people who are differently, because like a lot of people say, well, that happens to visuals of groups who do endorsement deals. That's different because take like an Eunwoo, for example.
Yeah.
People talk about his acting. People talk, like, you can talk about non-musical elements of someone's career.
Right.
If it's not just talking about their body.
It's a weird way. A lot of the idols who are the visuals, it's about, like, their face specifically.
Yes.
And so a lot of times idols like Eunwoo and Rowoon and such get a pass on this entire situation of being about their body because they're used as models or CF deals where it's literally,
and they're also doing
about
acting.
their
They're
face.
doing
Yeah.
other things. Like, the result of it is not, because also I would say that Eunwoo and Rowoon also get out of this because the group that they're in actually use them for their talent. Like, they do sing quite a bit in their songs.
Yes, yes.
But with them, like, you also have the discussion of their acting. It's not so much that they're just a pretty face. They're also an actor, a CF deal, other things are being done.
Mm-hmm. But I do think there's a very stark difference between being a visual for your face and being, like,
a visual for your body.
Like, those are very different types of people in K-pop groups as well.
Because also the thing with visual for your body, like, sure, you can have plastic surgery for your face, but also if you start changing your face drastically, we've seen how that goes in K-pop. People always have a comment.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The thing I also think about sometimes when they're the visual for their body is that, like, if you're a visual for your face, you are putting out your CFs, your this, your that. You're doing things with yourself.
Right.
What you see a lot of times with idols that are visuals for their body is that is, like, the only thing they are able to talk about. Any video they're in, they're at the gym, all their Instagram posts are body photo. Like, it is so wrapped in that.
Yeah.
That, one, I do worry for their, like, own self-esteem issues.
Right, right.
And two, it just sort of becomes, like you're more than that. And, like, I do think that, like, a lot of people just don't want to see that, which is the unfortunate part.
And there is also, like, a discussion surrounding, like, that type of idol who, like, that's all the posts and stuff that they make where, you know, maybe they like doing that and maybe that makes them feel confident in a way, but I feel like in a way that's almost like a cop-out answer for a lot of the fans to feel better about viewing that type of content because sure, they could enjoy doing it and it might be fun for them, but also a lot of the way that it's, like, presented online is, like, curated in a way where they know it will get fan attention.
And also,
so it's like, yeah, sure, you can enjoy working out and whatever, and that's fine, but a lot of times, like, a lot of those videos or, like, workout videos are shot in, like, really bizarre ways, and, like, that where it's clearly meant to, like, show off their body, but in, like, in a weird way.
And the other thing with that is that, like, sure, they can like it, but do they like it just because that's the only time that they get hyped up by their fans? Because, like, if they put out a normal, like, if you put out a normal post, it doesn't get have as much engagement as when they put out that other kind of post.
And it's like
I do think that there's, like, there's a weird dynamic, almost a power, because the other thing is I don't know if people realize, like, the power dynamics, like, maybe not each individual fan has, but fans as a collective have. Because that's the other problem, is that, like, fans as individuals hold no power, but when all the fans are saying one thing is, like, we like you for this one thing.
Right.
That's kind of, like, of course they're going to view that as the part of themselves that they invest in and they like showing off. And then that's a whole other issue.
Right.
The other person
like,
we want...
this just back to Wonho because we've talked about it already. To just put that into perspective, Wonho has 2.9 million followers on Instagram, and he only has about, like, 360,000, like, Spotify listeners. Because so many people enjoy Wonho only for his, like, weirdly posed, like, Instagram photos where... There are so many K-pop fans who will never listen to his music, but they follow him because they know he's a K-pop idol.
To put it...
And they want to see his, like, weird Instagram photos of him shirtless all the time. And that's all they care about for him.
Shorts. Let's put it this way. Wonho Instagram photos are a thing, and that we have done this, questionably, that we bought someone as a Christmas gift.
Yes.
And on a Tumblr.
For a joke.
For a joke. But also, they
That's
were,
a thing
like,
people can
questionably safe for work. photos.
Yeah, question.
Could I?
I don't think I would like recommend that thing that I bought anyone bringing that into their place of work.
I would not recommend people like questionably safe. Like they're not safe for like your home, but like work questionable. But what I'm saying is that like, can you imagine? And this is a lot of whataboutism. I don't necessarily love whataboutisms, but like, what if it was a girl group? What if it was a girl?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would get the same reaction of, hey, let's buy these cute only bikini photos.
Yeah.
As a or like we gave that Wonho Tumblr to another woman. Like this was a girl to girl gift.
Yes.
Can you imagine the woman in bikini Tumblr Instagrams being given, and like this is all like heterosexual women to heterosexual women, from like a heterosexual man to a heterosexual man.
Yeah.
That's creepy. Infinitely, that becomes a creepy situation.
Yeah, and then immediately it's not okay anymore, yeah.
Immediately it becomes, I'm questioning, like, okay, why do you even have that in your home? Much less, like, obviously you don't take it outside.
Right.
I don't recommend taking the Wonho Tumblr outside.
Right, like the Wonho, like, there are Wonho Thirst Trap, like, fake photo cards, like, we've gotten it put on a Tumblr. Like, you can find merch like that everywhere, and I'm sure there's merch of it for many other idols outside of Wonho.
He's just sort of the easiest one to bring up because there's an overabundance.
Right, and that's all
that's
like
sort of the brand he's cultivated.
And that's all like chill and nice, apparently.
And like fans like
and
on
like
Etsy.com.
and like socially acceptable that stuff exists, and you can purchase it for yourself or for other people.
And like I'm not saying it shouldn't exist. I'm just saying that like there is a double standard there. And like whether that can be from like historically men's like undervaluing of women or sexualization of women or like all these other 18 like other different like asterisk situations.
Mm-hmm.
But it is just something that is a double standard that I think we do need to acknowledge, that like you could do this and this could be Wonho's brand. But if a woman did this, she'd be slut-shamed to hell and back.
Yeah.
But also by female K-pop fans, she would also be slut-shamed.
Yes.
Not just by, like, the general public, by K-pop fans also.
Right.
So I do think that, like, this type of situation is bad for everybody. Men, women, all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you see all the time of, like your Hwasas and everything in their situations of, like, well, they can't wear that, but I'm like, Wonho can?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we're okay with that? Like, there's just a lot going on.
Yep.
And I think it's more like we're sort of coming at this from, like, a K-pop perspective, but, like, it is just a more overarching problem of society. Like, I'm aware that, like, we fix K-pop, we don't fix the world, but
right.
It is a symptom of that, is that in these situations, like, there's also this situation. So we also want to talk about one more, like, individual person.
Yep.
Much like how we talk about Wonho's, we want to talk about Johnny.
Johnny from NCT, Johnny.
Johnny from NCT, not the other Johnny.
Right.
There's a lot of Johnnies in this episode.
Yep.
So Johnny from NCT is sort of like the newest victim of this you're here for your body, I find, mindset.
Uh-huh.
Maybe not the newest, but, like, one of them, where...
One of the newer, I guess.
Yes.
In a way.
Because NCT has so many people in it that, like, I think they're running out of ways to make them all interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't focus attention on every single person. Someone falls through the cracks, and I think for a while Johnny was one of them.
Yep.
Until they decided, you know what, Johnny's gonna be the shirtless one.
Yep, Johnny was no longer allowed to wear a shirt.
Nope. Or at least not a closed shirt.
Yeah.
He's allowed to wear an open shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And where this also really comes to a head with the fan reaction is with their concert from last year.
I don't remember when the concert happened.
But
whenever NCT 127 was touring. Recently.
So it was, the videos I'm seeing in here was from like late last year, they were doing this. And so for Johnny's solo, oh boy.
Yep. He was given, it's giving Magic Mike is all I'll say.
It's really giving Magic
it's giving
Mike.
Magic
it's
Mike.
Because really, he's not really given much to sing.
Right.
Or, do.
But he's got this, weird, metal bar platform situation.
And he's just doing a Magic Mike performance with his pants on. Yeah. It's Magic Mike with pants.
Right.
And
it's this feels, uncomfortable. Yeah, to watch live in the middle of a K-pop concert.
My thing with this is that, one, oof, that'd be a lot, especially if you're, there with your parents. But two, my thing with this is that it'd be one thing if, Johnny was, a solo. If Johnny had a substantial amount else to do in NCT.
Yeah.
Johnny does not.
Johnny barely gets to say... He barely gets to say words in NCT. Any song
Johnny gets very few lines. And this seems like the box that they've thrown Johnny into.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine when Johnny became a K-pop idol, this is what he imagined his life would be.
Mm-hmm.
Doing this every night, tour after tour after tour.
Yep.
There's dozens of videos of this. Just search it on YouTube. So many. Just it's a lot.
And it's I don't know.
Not saying he doesn't
right,
doing it.
Because I don't know Johnny, but I would not be surprised if he likes it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But also the fact that you're giving him this whole showcase, but you won't give him any lines in his music, and we're all just fine with that.
Yep.
The other thing, and it's the thing that you're allowed to say to men, is the amount of comments that are and this, my skin crawls when I say some of this shit, choke me daddy, or those kind of comments that are constantly coming up.
Step on me, or shit like that. It's it's an entire verbiage now that is just so common to just throw around, and sure, a lot of people say that as a joke, but you can't, there's no way to tell apart the people who are saying it as a joke and the people who actually mean it online. And of course, when confronted about it, everyone's gonna say, "Oh yeah, it's a joke." But
and the thing with that part of a joke is okay, so what's the punchline? That's always my question to weird jokes like that. It's what's the punchline?
Mm-hmm.
That he's it's just a very weird. Not saying that those jokes have to go off entirely. I just think that we have to be aware of the fact that these are real people.
Yeah.
These are human beings.
That's a very much a topic I think is related to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is the fan fiction shipping element of it, where I know a lot of people have said that, shipping isn't that toxic of a mindset to have because you're shipping a quote-unquote idol image, which is therefore detached from them as a person, but is it?
But at the end of the day, that's still them.
It's still is it though? That's the thing. Is all K-pop idols are of course whatever we see of K-pop idols, so much of that content is they're putting on an image specifically to be an idol. But underneath that, they're still a person. Regardless of whether or not we get to see it or not, they are still a person. And so
they're still human beings.
You're taking what you believe them to be as a person and then sexualizing them or shipping them with another person in a really weird way. I feel it dehumanizes them in a lot of ways. Which is the thing that I have never been okay with, the shipping of real people ever.
And the other thing with the shipping of these real people, that everything else is that these are you're making so many assumptions, and two, these are their real life either friend, coworker, possibly someone they consider to be a very close friend. These are real people with real human dynamics that are pre-established that you have no idea about,
right?
That you're just sort of making content about.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked this up because I was curious because I know that I know that fan fiction and everything else are much more common with male pairings as opposed to your female male pairings.
Right.
So I looked it up. I just looked up 17 on some fan fiction sites. There are 37,017 fanfictions, right?
Uh-huh.
I looked up twice. The girl group, hold on, why didn't I write down the exact number for this? But let me look that up. I'm looking up twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Twice has 9,000.
Uh-huh.
To put into perspective just the sheer difference in, like,
in quantity
volume.
Of fanfiction, yeah.
Quantity. Not, who's to say about quality?
Right?
I'm looking up BTS just for fun. BTS is 192,000. What do you say is let's look at Girls' Generation. They've been around for years. You'd think, right?
Uh-huh.
1,000.
1,000.
1,184.
Uh-huh.
That's just like looking up on like one fanfiction site, just numbers, not talking about anything else. And it's just one, I do think that it just shows the sheer amount of, because again, a lot of it is women writing about male-male relationships, which in itself has its own issues. Very common in society. And like the merits of that with fictional characters is its own thing. Because, again, fictional characters aren't real. And that's fine. Do what you want with fiction. Real people, I do think, one, you have to have a lot more care. And two, at the very least, can you stop tagging the people in them? Like, because a lot of this, I've seen this happen with, and like, K-pop idols will never talk about it, but I do want to bring up certain other situations that have happened where, one, many a YouTuber who does not have the same, either one, media training, or two, massive company telling them not to say anything about anything.
Right.
That doesn't allow them to speak on this, where, one, a lot of YouTubers have said it does make them uncomfortable, because there is no way that they don't know it happens.
Right.
There are people in society, they know that this happens.
Right, especially as someone who's, like, so in, like, tuned with internet culture and things like that,
they know.
too.
And, like, they've come across it.
Yeah. And
Trust me.
with more recent K-pop groups, they're becoming more and more connected to the internet and to the fandoms and generally.
And, like, they're almost
so they definitely see it. Yeah. It's like, I mean, we'll talk about ZB1 a little bit later. They know everything about that fandom. Like, they know, and they know how to use it to their advantage, and, like, as well.
It has come out many a time that, like, because either they've mentioned it or everything else, that, like, they have their secret Twitter, they have their secret Instagram accounts, they have all this stuff, and, like, it's human nature. You want to Google your own name, and, like, you come across this stuff, and I do think that, one, you do have to be very responsible with what you do with that.
Yeah.
Because then also you get to the level of, for example, like, I want to bring this up because it is a real life situation that happened very recently, or at least pretty recently when he came with the recent book talk incidents regarding real person fanfiction. It wasn't even about real person fanfiction. It was just about real people kind of being uncomfortable for when you sexualize them against their will.
Right.
Which is that this book talker who really liked hockey romance would go to like a real hockey game and like just be kind of inappropriate about some of the players. And finally one of the players' wives was just like, hey, he can't say anything, but he doesn't appreciate it. And for some reason people were against the wife.
It's like
I don't know,
actually
man.
insane. And it's like, this
insane.
Is also, it's like, I don't know,
like,
people say weird shit online, but it's also like, if you're going to like a fan meeting or even a high touch or a moment where you're gonna see someone and you're gonna just take that moment to be super inappropriate about them or ask them about your own ship that you have in your head and just be like super uncomfortable and super weird just to get a reaction out of someone, it's like, then you're going like way too far at that point.
The other thing with it is I do think that, like, that's grown adult people. Like, that's, like, a hockey player, like, an adult. You have to also remember these K-pop idols are children, and this has been going on
and
with
even
them.
when they're not children, like, we're like, early, mid-20s, like, still not even, like, that grown of an adult.
I mean, I tried to look up, because I'm trying to think of, like, a lot of these fanfictions are also being written about minors, which is even worse. Even if you are a minor, stop sexualizing other minors. Like, that's also, like, stop everybody.
Just a full stop on that,
like,
generally.
Everything needs, stop writing porn about minors, please. Like, it's weird.
Yes.
I tried to look up NCT Dream for, like, fan fictions, but they just bookend NCT as, like, a whole
as a
group.
whole, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of which, NCT, 62,055.
Oh, Jesus.
Any other group you're curious about?
Look up ZB1. I am very curious about that. I know they're new, but I'm sure there's a lot.
I looked up Giddle just because I'm, like, looking at, like, very big girl groups.
I would say look up Mamamoo, too, also.
Giddle, we're at 1408.
Okay.
Mamamoo. For anyone that cares, I'm looking this up on AO3, by the way, just because
that's the fanfiction
Mamamoo more, double for women, 2,273.
Okay.
ZB1.
Or Boys...
2,308.
Or that or just Boys Planet, generally,
yeah,
as a
because Boys Planet 1,796, so I think it's it's rapidly growing. They have more than Mamamoo.
For a group that's been around since July, like...
Yeah, that's insane. But,
yeah.
yes. So, like, the fan fiction aspects are growing. I am curious. There's just a lot. Let me even look up, like, a smaller group. Shit, I hate the search. The search feature on this thing is awful. For just looking up, So just Pentagon. An older group. Oh, wow. Oh. No, I can't just look up Pentagon. That's just that gives me just the word.
That's
Pentagon of 1,800.
Okay.
That's a decent amount for Pentagon.
For Pentagon, the group.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a lot. To put into perspective, though, Harry Potter, for example, has 417,373. Like, we're not in that territory yet,
right.
But dear God. But also weird, BTS is like 1/4 of that.
I know, I was like, BTS, and it's like, then at that point, it's like, well, what happens if you search K-pop on there? Like, what does that entail?
That doesn't really work, I don't think, because I don't think they tag K-pop.
Because if you were to combine all of K-pop together, then
it's a lot.
It would be
a
lot.
Boy,
yeah.
then you're looking at a lot, but like, it's just the shipping culture in K, and that's just fan fiction, not talking like fan edits.
Right.
The, like, just posts on everything.
Because there's so many TikTok fan edits. Like, that's a whole other situation.
And, like, there's a difference between, like, a fun little fan edit. Because, like, I've seen fan edits. I think they're fun. They're cute time. And then there's the ones where you're like, oh, no. Like, because I don't know if you really believe this, but you're uncomfortable.
Because I've seen, like, cute, fun, like, Halbin edits. And then I've seen a lot of really weird, uncomfortable Halbin edits. Like, where...
Yeah.
We're like drawing the line of like, this is a little bit too like inappropriate for this to be.
Because then there's people that I think genuinely believe what they're saying, and I'm like, any idol like, yes, there are queer K-pop idols. There have to be, just in sheer numbers and population demographics.
Right.
What their sexuality is none of our business, nor should it be.
You have no right to know, and like no rights to ask anybody if you ever see them in person about it. Like, absolutely do not.
Truly have no reason to ask.
Yeah.
Like, their sexuality is their own thing. One, we shouldn't out anybody, and two, nothing of what they're doing is impacting the queer experience, your queer experience in any way.
Right.
Like, it's fine.
And it's like, I think that's a problem also, like, the BL community, in general has a big problem with, like, forcefully outing people. And that is, and I know, like, that community also overlaps a lot with K-pop. And the fact, like, the actuality
even
of, like, forcibly outing a person in K-pop is, like, way lower that would actually happen. But you still shouldn't do it. Like, you still, like, you can't.
And, like, by the BL community, I'm also this is more so for, like, the Western American BL community, where we're looking at things like the one time that they made that one kid from Heartstopper
yes, that was
himself,
what I was thinking about,
fucked. Recently, they've been sort of doing it because it's two people that are quote-unquote publicly presenting as straight, and I'm like, what are we doing? If they are, if they're not, if they're bi, if whatever, just because you're in a relationship with a woman doesn't mean you're not queer.
It's
also,
not your
leave
business,
it alone.
like, at all.
It's not your business. Leave somebody alone. Because also, the other thing is, yes, a lot of queer roles should be played by queer actors, but at the same time, outing somebody is wrong, and two, people can respectfully play roles.
Yeah.
I don't think either actor in Red, White, and Royal Blue is queer. I could be wrong. I didn't look that up. But just, like, leave people alone.
Yeah.
I think is my main issue.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing fictional characters. Leave them alone.
Yep.
But, yes, at the end of the day, I do think... And then that's for people actually integrating into, like, queer spaces, making queer media. K-pop idols are just singing songs.
Yeah.
Leave them alone. You're questioning their real life relationships with people that they know and have to work with every day, whether they have good or bad relationships with them, or their coworkers, or their friends, or their best friends, or whatever.
And it's
that's
like,
a lot of assumptions.
I know K-pop
and people are complex.
I know K-pop is like very popular among like queer audiences in the West as well. And that's all well and good. And I know that a lot of, like, K-pop groups and, like, shows like Boys Planet and stuff, too, has been really big in queer spaces and, like, helped, like, a lot of people, like, with their own experiences and stuff like that. But you also cannot, like, force your own experience onto these idols and groups and other people who you do not know. Like, they can help you, but, like, you cannot force your expectations of them onto them either.
Yes. Also, before anyone comes for us, we are both two asexual people. And also, if you don't think we're in the queer community, you can go fuck off right now.
Yeah, that is, yep.
Like, that's also, we also will not accept that kind of slander.
Yeah, absolutely not.
like, we are just, we have our own, like, our own sexualities should also not be a part of this. But before anybody comes being, like, two straight women, like fuck off. Like, fuck off.
Get out of here with that.
But at the same time, I do think that it is just sort of something that is more unique to the male. Like, not saying it doesn't happen to female idols, because again, you hear it all the time about, like, is this idol that idol? But it's far more common in the male idol sphere.
Yeah.
Far more so. And also, to the point where, and this is a good transition to our next point, it's sort of become something that they've picked up on and are kind of using.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's as much to, like, queer bait.
Right.
But just in a way to sort of give the people what they want. Because I don't think anyone, like, I think people just kind of like to just see the... I don't know if it's... I don't know how to phrase this without sounding terrible. But, like, it's just kind of what the audience seems to be asking for.
Right.
And they're reacting to that.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you have groups like Only One Of.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as you've seen a lot of recent, like, your Libido, your, whatever the one from last year was called, I forget.
Skins, the really awful sounding one.
Yeah, Skins. They sort of have gone to the point where their concept has sort of been, for lack of a better word, kind of queerbaity. Like, there's a lot of just lingering glances, touches. They're going to be in a BL as a group together where two of them are going to play the leads.
Right.
Like, it's a lot. It's just sort of, that is sort of something they've leaned into for their concept, and whether or not that is, like, they are actually anything or anything like that, they've decided that that is something that they're going to use in their music.
And it's like, they have been sort of, they've isolated themselves from a lot of the Korean fandom and Korean media because of that, because them as a group, because of that concept is very not accepted in South Korea.
Yeah, and who's to say if they're not, like, actually coming out, because that would, like, fully isolate them.
Right.
And, like, if it's, like, weirdly more okay for them to be straight guys, or at least... who knows what their sexuality is, guys doing this stuff as opposed to confirmed out.
Right.
But, like, at the same time, it's like, these concepts sometimes are a lot. And, like, not saying that it's to the point where they're uncomfortable doing them or they don't want to.
Right.
But for that to be what a company decided to put their money into, there is a very specific demographic of people that at some point, either there's two options here. Either they're doing this because it's what the people want and it's what's getting them their fame, or on the other side, it's what they want to do anyway, and they do not think that they will still be accepted if they come out.
Yeah.
And I think both of those options
both
are
of those
kind of
are
questionable.
not great options to be, like, places to be in, yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, it's a lot.
And it's like, you can, and it's like, I don't even know if, because I think there have been interviews where they've been asked about their concept, and they said that they kind of want to do it because, to sort of represent, like, more queer audiences, because it's not something that is seen in K-pop, but it's like, it's hard to tell ever if that's an actual opinion of them, or if it was just something they were told to say. And it's like, that's a thing we'll never really know for sure.
And also, for, being and this is not that I'm judging how anyone decides to represent the queer experience, but also, for the amount of queer experiences that they have been, for the amount of videos that they've been putting out there that are about the queer experience, they do kind of fall into this very one foothold of the queer experience, which is one, very sexualized, and two, sort of the one that appeals to straight women who like to watch this kind of stuff. Like, it is very convenient that is the niche of the queer experience that they want to represent.
Yep.
And only that niche.
Yep. Because it's like all of their videos are kind of like samey, from their group music videos to like their solo stuff. Like, it is all like
been doing,
hyper sexualized, like, storylines and everything like that.
A lot of shirtless.
A lot of shirtless. It's like, it's very, like, sexually charged, like, in every way. Most of their stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot. But yes, it really just is that kind of, and, like, not that there's, like, anything inherently wrong with only one of. I just think that adding them into other, I think this is sort of where we can also talk about Boys Planet.
Yeah.
And the Haobin situation, where it's like, no matter what their sexuality is, they sort of tapped into a market. Considering the fact that I've called them Haobin as a duo.
Yeah.
And that's just a ship name.
Yep.
Like, that's just the thing. The fan fiction's same thing. Like, it's very much, like, looking at, like, oh, the public likes to do this. What if we, like, they won that show.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it was because of that.
But they definitely won that show, like, together, like, in a weird way.
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't think they won it because of that.
No.
But I do not think that it hurt them in any way.
No.
Like, I think it helped. Like, it had to have helped at least a little bit. It at least brings intrigue. It at least, because they're very aware.
Yeah.
They're aware of everything.
I remember.
They're mothering all throughout this country.
Yep. And I remember I compared this whole situation back in our Boys Planet episode, like, to the Hunger Games, where it's like, you have no, like, it's like, we have no clue how much of whatever they're showing us is real, if it's not, if it was, like, if it's purely because they know it got them popularity, like, we will never know, and we have no right to know.
That's also none of my business.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, it's a fascinating tactic.
It's so fascinating because it is really the first time something like that has
fell
happened.
for it, hooked, line, and sinker.
Yeah, and I think with the nature of Boys Planet being filmed and aired so, like, simultaneously, they were allowed to be on the show and then watch the responses to themselves on the show. And while they were doing that, they sort of tapped into the fandom, because this generation of K-pop idols are very online and aware of what is going on in their own fandoms. Wild. And we're sort of able to take that, and it's like, okay, well, if this is gonna help us win, then it's gonna help us win.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not friends, I'm not saying anything like that, but that this is sort of, like, 10 years, you tell me on season, it also, I think, shows a change in the K-pop fandom, because you can't tell me on season 2, if someone would have played this angle, that it would have worked out with 1 and 2, like, I don't think it would have. I think that sort of the K-pop fandoms have evolved, especially with how much is, I mean, especially now with the fact that it's so also taking into account all the international fans. Like, before this, they weren't going to be putting, Like, the international fans weren't even allowed to vote, really, before this season.
Right. And I do wonder if that entire situation happening, like, would have even happened had only Koreans been allowed to vote, because I don't think it would have. Or else,
who knows? Because also in Korea, they were also very I think that
they were
that there is. I think because BLs are also popular in Korea. Like, I do think that there is a subsection of fan that would have still absolutely loved it, and I do think that they could have still. Because unlike the only one of situation where only one of is being extremely explicit, explicit in the way that it is it's not subtext, it is text in only one of videos that they're playing that kind of like a queer storyline. You can still call everything that Halbin does in that show subtext.
Yeah.
The only
because I do think maybe the Koreans are seeing that as a friendship, while the international audience is seeing it as, like, they're in love.
Because, like, nothing they do in there is, like, at all a confirmation of anything.
Right.
It's just friendship. What they're doing is not inherently any different than what some other, like, very well-known K-pop friendships or highly shipped K-pop friendships do.
Uh-huh.
Like, that kind of stuff is sort of constantly there. It's a lot. And, like, I don't know where the line is. Like, I don't think there is a line. We're just having a conversation here.
Yeah.
I just think it's something that people need to be aware of.
Right. Because it's, like, a lot of this stuff also, like, very much is dependent on, like, context and also, like, intent of each individual person as well.
Because the other thing constantly, especially with all this speculation, is that if they were to come out, and this is a problem a lot in, like, BL spaces, is if they are actually queer, they're gonna lose a lot of their popularity. And that is the oxymoron that I will still never understand.
It's actually crazy.
If they are actually gay, it's like, what? How? What? Okay. You're okay with it until it's real. Okay.
Yeah, it's
And, like,
crazy.
I do think that is sort of the fear with a lot of, like, even, like, You're Only One Ofs, I think there's a lot of fear in there with, like, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, even if they are or not. Boys playing at the same time, they're fine with Halbin, but if it was real, it wouldn't be okay.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. So, what's our next point? Oh, is it the...
I think it's...
We've kind
of done that already, so we only really have the last...
The last point?
One, yeah.
Yeah. So this is one we've started thinking about a little bit recently.
Mm-hmm.
And what sparked it is a girl group, because a lot of these conversations are oftentimes, especially for us, are oftentimes sparked because we're looking at a situation going on with a girl group, and we're like, you know, that same thing has happened with a boy group before this, and no one cared.
And no one talks about it, yeah.
And, like, no one cared. And we're talking about sexualization of underage K-pop idols, or male idols specifically.
Right.
And a lot of that came from the ad nauseum discussions about New Jeans.
Right.
Because New Jeans somehow will always be a topic of conversation for everyone.
Yep.
They're great. I love New Jeans. There's nothing wrong with New Jeans.
Mm-hmm.
Also, not that New Jeans, other than that one brief, like, lyrics of Cookie scenario, I don't think has inherently been sexualized.
Right.
Almost at all.
Like, they just had a Powerpuff Girls collaboration. Like,
they're out here having a Powerpuff Girls collaboration and wearing some of the longest safety shorts in this industry, as they should be.
Right.
It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're doing fun. Like, I don't think there's anything
like, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the songs or their concept generally.
But everyone's looking for it.
Yeah.
They're looking for the minute that someone, like, and I do think that it is, like, good to be protective of these girls. Like, they are young, they're, like, there's a situation where, like, anything
about
could
the
happen.
discussion around New Jeans becomes, like, creepy because people are so obsessed with it.
And they're, like, weirdly obsessed with, like, looking for any time anyone says, like, anything even a little bit, like, against their own personal code of ethics with New Jeans.
Yeah.
And I'm like, alright, it's New Jeans. Everything's been going fine for New Jeans, other than that one time, which is a thing that that song is so good, I think people forgot about the lyrics. Like, weirdly.
Uh-huh.
The lyric thing was such an issue for so long, and then even people I know that were like, the lyrics are sus, but the song's a banger. It was on so many people's end of the year favorites, and I'm like, so I guess the lyrics weren't that much of a problem for
care.
you.
Yeah.
Guess we're fine with it. But I will say, I still think for me it's my least favorite New Jeans song.
It's not a good song.
Even take out the lyrics, even if the lyrics were perfectly above board.
I don't like that song.
I don't love it.
It's a weird
that much.
song, yeah.
It is. But I guess we're the weird ones.
As we usually are, but...
That's
not surprising for us.
No. To be honest, my favorite New Jeans song is, like, either if New Jeans was a full-length song,
yes,
or Super Shy, to be honest.
I would still love Attention. That's
I like
still
Attention,
a banger.
too, but I think Super Shy, like, a little bit on my edges it out for me. But that's neither here nor there. We're going on New Jeans tangent.
Mm-hmm.
Which we can do. I feel like New Jeans is... We love New Jeans. I hope they don't get, like... I hope they don't become the girl group of the month.
Uh-huh.
Which is a thing that happens to a lot of girl groups. But to get back to the point is that there are a lot of... Maybe it's because... The thing with New Jeans is that they were all underage, which is a little thing. But there's this interesting, like, protection over, like, underage K-pop girls.
Yeah.
That does not happen for underage K-pop boys. I think specifically about Dream.
Right.
And I think it was, I don't know if it's maybe because Dream fucking debuted literally on, like, as Boy Scouts with, like, hoverboards.
Right, yeah.
If that was the concept, it's not the same level of, like, let's keep this. And also, like, I bet you it happened. There were underage Dream fics. They're only of age, like, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's probably dozens of them.
Right.
Like, it's a lot.
And then it's, like, and also, like, a big part of this that, like, sparked this is, Yujin from ZB1. Because Lip J was just out here doing that in the open, like, being weird about Yujin the entire
like, people
time.
were making jokes.
Yeah.
No one spoke about the creepiness of Lip. Lip J loved that boy.
Yeah. And it was like,
in not a little brother
kind of way.
Sometimes it was
cute, but a lot of the times it was like, what are you doing?
Just the amount of times that boy had to be like, Nuna, I love you, to Lip J.
I know.
Was a lot. And
just being constantly told to say that. And it's just like,
always.
Can we leave him alone, please?
Yeah.
And because of that, I think the New Jeans whole situation has sparked like a weird thing in the K-pop fandom about wanting all idols to debut as adults, and that's
over
like
18.
Fine, like nothing is wrong with that, but it has also caused like because
weird
it's
backlash
like,
in
it's not even weird backlash, but
weird directions.
People are like just weird about it now. It's like
yeah,
it's like I've run into this like subsection of K-pop fans who are incapable of not sexualizing K-pop idols.
Yeah.
So, like, they need them to be adults because they're going to sexualize them, like, no matter what. And I forget...
Because they're going to be sexualized anyway.
Yeah, and I forget that that's an entire section of people that exists because some people are like, oh, yeah, I like this group, but they're too young for me. And I'm just like, what does that mean?
Like, you don't... Because unless you... Because that's the thing with like, New Jeans. There's nothing inherently sexual in any way about anything New Jeans does.
Yeah.
But I think people so hyper-focused on it to the point where I'm like, there's nothing sexual here. What's wrong with it?
Yeah.
Just because they're under the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird thing is that a lot of people are, and the part that's, it's fine to want all your idols to debut over the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them don't want it to be done for, like, mental health purposes.
Right.
They don't want it to be done for, like, hey, having an informed decision about signing contracts under the age of 18,
right.
like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
They want it for only the sexualization reasons. And, like, if the only thing stopping someone from sexualizing an idol is the fact that they're not 17 and a half,
right.
like, it's like the people
I also
that,
feel like
date.
If there's a weird, like, switch that flips that once someone is 18, they are inherently different, also that is a little bit weird for me.
Yes.
Because it's like, as a person, they probably are not that much different, like, 6 months ago to now, but it's when it becomes legal, now it's okay, which is, like, sure, it is legal now, but I don't know if, like, that has the same thing that, like, you think it means. Like, it's...
Exactly. Like, I do think that, like, if it's only for sexualization reasons,
mm-hmm.
like, it's just... if you're sexualizing K-pop idols the minute they turn 18, that's a you
Like,
problem.
that's also not okay.
That's not okay.
If, like, you are, like, specifically waiting for someone to turn 18 before you're like, okay, well, now I can sexualize them, like, that's also, like, maybe do some thinking about yourself.
Yeah. And, like, and it's also interesting because a lot of those, like, sexy girl groups from the past, they were, like, 19, 20.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were not 18-year-old women. Like, they were slightly older than that when they, like, went full sexy concept.
Right.
And I'm like, that's what it should be anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, even if when they are 18, like, you still have to sort of take it slow in that area because they're barely legal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that it is legal, barely, is just, like, I don't know, I just think we're so obsessed with this now that it just feels like we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Right. And it feels like people are just, like, it's almost like like being an adult thing is like people looking for a loophole to rationalize, like, sexualizing a person as being okay. Like,
yes.
that's very much the way it comes off now. Because I've also seen people, like, praying, like, making TikToks to, like, praying to the photo card gods that I don't get this member because they're underage. And I'm like, if having a photo card of a person is going to make you just immediately become weird about it, like, that's a you problem at that point. Like, it just by owning and seeing a photo card of a person, that means you have to sexualize them now. Like, that's weird. Like, that's on you.
I do think that there is a discussion to be had about, like, let's not debut, like, 13-year-olds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, a lot of that was being had with, like, your fantasy boys, situation.
Yeah, like, there is definitely an age that is too young.
There's a conversation to be had.
13, 14, I still think too young.
Too young.
Yeah.
Or if you, like, it should be one kid, like, an exceptional talent. Like, it used to be a rare thing for, like, 13-year-olds. It used to be, like, a thing of, like, oh, he debuted at 13, he must be, like, your IUs, your Jungkooks, your Taemins, like, that type thing. It wasn't like, here's 3 13-year-olds and a 16-year-old, now go.
Yeah.
Like, that's K-pop groups are, like, skewing younger, and it is getting to a point.
Mm-hmm.
But the conversation, I don't think, should be focused on the sexualization. Because also, immediately sexualizing an 18-year-old is kind of weird.
Right.
But, like, there's gotta be a balance there, where it's like, you're almost protesting too much to the New Jeans situation.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels very... K-pop's in a weird place, because I do think people are almost... It's almost when you go, like, so, like, liberal, like, you're almost becoming, like...
Yes, like, that it's, like, also, like, a weird
oppressive.
Skewing with the Gen Z right now, where they're, like, so conservative, like, sexually, like, that is, I think that's, it has to be a part of why, very protective. I feel like that's definitely why the K-pop fandom has skewed like this recently as well, especially with K-pop being very much easily accessible in the West.
It does need, there's gotta be a balance there. Like, we can't be for everything should be fine.
Right.
But, like, also, like, not nothing. There's a lot.
Yeah.
And, like, do I have the answers? No.
There is no good answers.
There is no right answer to this.
There's no good answer to most of the things we've talked about on this episode, except for the fact that, you know, people in power shouldn't exploit people who aren't in power. But other than that, really.
And, like,
a lot of these, like, fandom-related issues, it's not something that I don't even think can be fixed, honestly. It's just sort of things that happen. Like, when you exist in, like, the K-pop fandom, like, you're gonna see it happen,
and also, like, when you exist in the world of, like, any kind of fandom whatsoever, because, like, this happens to us, it happens to, like, we've talked about, like, YouTubers, athletes, of American music, like, like, if you are a person with any kind of, like, what's it called? Following.
Right.
This stuff sort of springs up almost naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very interesting. It's an interesting thing to point out because, like, no matter what you do, the same thing will always, like, in a weird way, it's almost like, I don't know, people use, like, real people as, like, fictional pawns all the time. Isn't that what fantasy football, like, comparing fantasy football to fan fiction, obviously.
Right.
But, like, isn't that kind of what fantasy football is?
Right, yeah.
Kind
in
of.
a weird way.
A little bit. like people, like, it's just, there's no right answer anymore, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to end this.
I know.
I don't know. I don't think we've come to any conclusions.
There is no
really.
conclusions to really be made here, is the thing. It was mainly just meant as a discussion, as
we're here to talk through some things.
That was really it. Because there is, like, I don't know if there's not really a conclusion that you can draw from any of this.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. But yes, we will kind of continue this discussion in a different way next week in an episode.
Kind of.
That's somewhat not it's, I don't even know if it's probably another one of these episodes that is like, we are not going to have a conclusion to draw. We're just discussing a trend that's happening in K-pop. We're discussing
a phenomenon.
Yeah, which is the K-pop to BL pipeline, which tangentially related to this entire issue, but it's just like a thing we have observed is happening in K-pop, and we need to talk about it given the media we consume. So here we are.
Absolutely. It is something we need to discuss.
Yeah. So we will be having a very similar but different conversation about that next episode next week.
A little more lighthearted next week.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, because a lot of that is just like, it's a fun PowerPoint of like explaining what is happening with that trend rather than trying to tackle like very serious like societal issues like this one. So
that too. Yeah. But if you made it this far,
congrats.
Godspeed.
Godspeed.
I'm so sorry.
Yep. It's a discussion that is not very clear, but it's something we needed to talk.
Answers. No. If you thought that we were going to give you answers,
we don't have the answers. But
we have no answers.
We needed to talk about it, so that's why we did this and why we had this episode. So, hooray, I guess.
Yay.
But we are available on all major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We also have a YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes along with fun clip videos occasionally as well. And with that, we will see you in the next episode. Bye!
Bye!